My brother banned me from coming to his wedding because his wife's family is at war with the rainbow. Now my parents are banning him from their inheritance unless he divorces his wife. Posted by you/charming_educator612. So, my brother's wedding happened 2 days ago, and it turned into complete chaos, which I know even though I wasn't there. You might wonder why I didn't attend the wedding if it was my brother's. Well, it's because of his wife's family. He did send me an invitation because he wanted me there, but his fiancée told him I couldn't attend because I had a boyfriend. You might be confused, but I'm a man, and I have a boyfriend whom I wanted to bring to the wedding. She said that even though she and my brother didn't have a problem with it, her extremely religious parents, who had already forced her to have the wedding in a church, would most likely banish us from the wedding and cause trouble between our families. After she told him that, my brother told me I couldn't attend and explained why. You might think I was angry, but the truth is, I was relieved. I hate going to big events with lots of people because of my social anxiety, and I was already used to not being able to attend certain events because of my sexuality, so it was nothing I hadn't heard before. So, on the day of the wedding, I stayed home with my boyfriend. It's worth mentioning that my parents apparently didn't know I wasn't attending. I was chilling at home, cuddling with my boyfriend, when I suddenly got a text message from my parents asking me where I was because they couldn't find me at the wedding party. I told them I wasn't attending and asked if my brother hadn't told them anything. They said no and asked me what had happened. I didn't see any reason to lie, so I sent them a text explaining exactly why. Now, I have to admit, I don't exactly know what happened after I sent that message because they read it but didn't reply. And why did they care in the first place? They hadn't even noticed I wasn't there until the wedding was already over, they only realized when the wedding party started. However, apparently, my parents talked to my brother about it, and all of a sudden, my absence became the main topic of the wedding party. From what I heard, two sides formed, on one hand, my parents and the rest of my family, and on the other, the family of my brother's wife. Apparently, as her husband, he felt compelled to take her side and tried to argue in her favor. It's crazy to think that I was just sitting at home, living my best life with my boyfriend, while all of that drama went down at his wedding. The wedding party was ruined, and my brother showed up at my door, angrily screaming at me, demanding to know why I felt the need to ruin his wedding. I was confused and asked him what had happened. He told me everything, and I explained that it wasn't my intention. I had simply told our parents the truth because they didn't know and wanted to know where I was, and I had assumed he had already told them. He screamed at me, saying I had ruined his wedding. I told him it wasn't my fault that he hadn't been honest with them. I had just respected their wish for me not to attend. I couldn't have known it would blow up like this because, as I said, I hadn't been able to attend several events before due to my sexuality, and my parents had never said anything about it, so I thought it would be the same this time. But I gotta admit, it's kinda sweet that my parents and the rest of my family stood up for me. They haven't done that before, and it's a more than welcome change. Still, I feel kinda bad because, apparently, I really did ruin the wedding party. Update 2 days later. I didn't think I would give an update, but many interesting things happened. So, after my brother's visit, his wife and he went on their honeymoon. And the way the wedding party went might have been even worse than I imagined. What happens now is incredible. When I said in the main post that two fronts had formed, I only meant that metaphorically, of course, but not anymore. While nothing particularly interesting happened in the first 2 days afterward, the terror started as soon as my brother and his wife left for their honeymoon. My mom and dad visited me and told me how the wedding party escalated and how it almost turned into physical violence. I thought it was funny at first, but this truly bothers me. I also want to point out that you all did a great job convincing me it's not my fault, but hearing my parents' side still gave me a bad feeling in my stomach. However, like I said, the terror started shortly after they went on their honeymoon. And when I say terror, I mean that my sister-in-law's family found both my Facebook and Instagram accounts and started spamming me with hateful messages. I received insults and threats from various different accounts, all of which had one thing in common: they had a Christian theme and the same last name. So it wasn't hard to figure out whose accounts they were, mainly because I don't know my sister-in-law's family at all. I only know her, and I know her parents were homophobic Christians. But whatever, they didn't just attack me, they also found my boyfriend's account through mine since we're linked as a couple, and they started sending him the same messages. The messages contained, on one side, typical bigot stuff like, "You're burning in hell for your sins." One even called me and my boyfriend two devils in disguise. The rest were just blatant insults. You get the idea. I called my parents and told them what was happening. Then I sent a text message to my brother with screenshots of the messages his wife's family sent me, to which he replied that I shouldn't disturb him with that during his honeymoon, as I already destroyed his wedding party. I couldn't believe it. He was just like them. He did send me an apology after my mom called him, but none of this is the main reason I'm giving you this update so early. This morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I hesitated because I thought it might be one of them. And I was right, but it wasn't one of the people who insulted me. I heard a woman's voice who introduced herself as the half-sister of my brother's wife. She said it hadn't gone unnoticed what her family was doing and that she wanted to apologize on their behalf. I told her I wasn't going to tell anyone in her family about this and that I didn't blame her for their actions. She thanked me and hung up. I don't know why, but I have a feeling she only did this to protect her family from being reported. My mother texted me earlier, saying she wants to report the insults and harassment from these people and that she is demanding my brother divorce his wife, or she will disinherit him from her will, because that's not how she raised him. A little radical, in my opinion, but I understand where she's coming from. This whole situation has escalated so much, it's unbelievable. Thank you all for your support on my first post. Second update 9 days later. It's been a few days. First of all, my boyfriend and I are fine. Luckily for us, they didn't go any further than their text messages. My mom filed a report against them. I don't know the current situation regarding that, as I haven't filed the report myself. The reason I'm updating you is a different one. First of all, one person in my sister-in-law's family is actually going to testify in my favor and against her family. It really takes courage to do so. It's the same person who called me in the last update. Somehow, they found out that she is into women. I guess she had no reason to hide it anymore. However, she said she's fine and is going to stay at a friend's house. I have so much respect for what she's doing. Imagine the strength it takes to testify against your own family. I now feel bad for assuming she only called me to save her family from being reported. More importantly, what is the current situation with my brother? Well, my mom talked to him and told him to leave his wife, or she would disinherit him from her will. He decided to stay with his wife, and my mom followed through on her threat. He's no longer in her will. My father did the same. When I visited them, I also told them that I wished this entire situation had gone differently. They assured me it wasn't my fault, but I feel like if it weren't for me, my family wouldn't be torn apart like this. I haven't talked to my brother since then. My boyfriend feels similar. He also told me he kind of feels responsible for all this chaos. I assured him it's not his fault, but honestly, I wasn't even sure if I could say that in my position. On the other hand, it was my sister-in-law's family's bigotry that ruined everything, and everything would have been fine if I could have just attended. But now, it's time for me to distance myself from this situation. We'll see what the report will do. I followed your advice to document everything. The insulting and harassing messages continued until 2 days ago, so I have a lot to say about them. Unfortunately, homophobia is still very much normalized in our society. I already mentioned this in a post on my profile, but the reason I'm so calm and casual about the situation is simply that I'm used to situations like this. They don't get to me anymore. If I let every insult affect me, I wouldn't make it for long. It's a coping mechanism. I've been in situations where I was sent to the hospital because I kissed my boyfriend in public. So insults and harassment like theirs are nothing I haven't seen before. I want to say thank you for all your support on my first 2 posts. Third update 3 months later. I think some of you were waiting for an update, so here I am. Keep in mind that this update will probably be the last one. Last time, I told you my mother was pressing charges against them, and to my surprise, we won. They weren't going to jail or anything, but they had to pay for their actions, literally. There was one incident where my sister-in-law's dad was actually trying to find out where I lived and asked my brother, who told him. Only God knows what he would have done to us if we had still lived there. But in the span of the last 2 months, my boyfriend and I moved to a different place, which my brother knew nothing about. Also, their social media accounts were deleted. However, I don't know if this was part of their punishment or if they did it themselves. My mom has also carried out the threat toward my brother and disinherited him from her will. After he came back from his honeymoon, he begged her to put him back in. She said she would only if he apologized to me. She invited my boyfriend and me over, and my brother sat in the living room with a mad look on his face. She made him apologize, but I didn't accept his apology because I could tell it wasn't sincere. He did it because he had to, not because he was actually sorry. I told my brother that I was disappointed in who he had become. Before that, we had a huge bond and usually never judged each other for things like this, and all of a sudden, he had such a problem with me having a boyfriend. I just don't get it. I told him that I miss the old him. He didn't respond to anything. He just sat there quietly, staring at the floor. After I finished, he just got up and left. That was the last time I spoke with him, and it's already been a few weeks since it happened. My parents have paid much more attention to the discrimination I face since this incident. They wanted to learn more about the challenges I face as a queer person. I really love them. My dad even got a pride flag for me and asked if he could hang it in our bedroom. I love that I have such great parents. I just wish my brother would become the person he once was. By the way, since the case with my sister-in-law's family is over, I haven't heard anything about their lesbian daughter. She supported us during the process, but we lost contact afterward, and I just hope she's doing fine. Fourth update 6 months later. The final update of my story happened 6 months ago, and I figured some of you might be interested in how things are currently going. So, I'm back, at least for this post right now. There have been some developments. First of all, I want to give you an update about my brother's wife's sister. Around 2 months after my last update, she texted us and asked if she could come over. We talked for a while, and I was relieved to find out that she was doing fine. She said that she moved in with her girlfriend once the case was over, simply because her parents and the rest of her family had disowned her and even threatened her with physical violence if she dared to return. However, her relationship with her girlfriend eventually ended, and she asked if she could stay with us for a few days until she found something. She ended up staying with us for 2 weeks. During that time, my parents visited us and offered her a place to stay since they have a big house with extra space. She's currently living there because she wants to study, and my parents have no problem letting her stay a little longer. My boyfriend and I also support her financially to some extent. We included her in several celebrations, such as Christmas and New Year's Eve, and I feel like she's the sister I never had. What's probably more interesting to you is how my brother is currently doing. The truth is, I don't know exactly. We haven't talked since his so-called apology. However, he actually tried to attend our Christmas celebration, but the moment he showed up, my dad kicked him out and said, and I quote, "This homophobic rubbish is no longer allowed in my house." I love him, but of course, both of my parents followed through with disowning him. My boyfriend and I are still together, and I feel like he might be the one I want to marry. This entire situation has made our bond so much stronger. I plan on proposing to him, but there are so many ideas floating around in my head that I can't decide which one to go with. Also, my sister-in-law's family's social media accounts have disappeared entirely, all of them. But I assume they've already made new ones under a different name. I'm just glad all of this is finally over. I don't have any compassion left for my brother. I just wish he had never turned out this way. Everything that happened to him, he brought on himself. Thanks for reading. Wishing you all the best. Fifth update 2 months later. Do you remember when I told you in my last update 2 months ago that I would propose to my boyfriend? Well, I did it today. I came up with so many ideas that it was really hard to decide, so I gave him some subtle hints, not too obvious, just enough to see how he would react and then decide based on his reaction. In the end, I made a photo album of us featuring the most important events in our relationship. Each of them had a thought of mine and a caption below. Some were meaningful, but some were just random, like one photo of us eating at his favorite restaurant on his birthday, with the caption saying something like, "Damn, that pizza was good." That made him laugh. We walked to his favorite spot in town, which is a beautiful lake. That's where I gave him the album and told him it was a present and to look through it. He was so focused that he didn't notice what I was doing behind him when I told him I was just grabbing something I had forgotten. I positioned myself behind him, and that's when the last page came into play. That page had a photo of me holding the ring in the same way I was positioned behind him, looking straight at the camera. The caption said, "Hopefully, he says yes." He turned around in disbelief and started crying almost immediately when he saw me. I couldn't even finish the question before he already said yes. It was exactly how I had hoped it would go. I always dreamed of making my proposal feel like something out of a romance novel, and I was successful. So yeah, that's it, I'm going to marry him. I already told my entire family, except for my brother, of course. They were so happy about it, especially my mom and new sister, who shrieked with excitement on the phone. I assume my brother knows anyway, considering I shared it on Facebook. You guys are probably right that he might be planning something, but if he is, it won't stop us. Sixth update 2 months later. Hey, I haven't talked to you all in about 2 months. That's because my boyfriend and I are fully invested in planning the wedding. We have a date for it. It's gonna be next year. Still, I have so many followers on this account, and I kinda wanna include you in my journey. My sister is currently helping. I don't know if I should mention it here, but my mother recently called me to tell me that my brother apparently got divorced. I have no idea what's going on with him, though. Not like I care much, but I guess some of you might find it interesting. I'm sorry, but too much has happened, and I really don't want to have anything to do with him anymore. But enough about me. How are you guys doing? Seventh update 8 months later. So, the last time I actively posted an update was about a year ago. If you haven't followed my account in the meantime, I'll briefly summarize what happened. I got engaged shortly after the update, and now, a year later, we're married. I'll be honest, I'm still shaken up. I wouldn't update on this subreddit if something significant hadn't happened. It's amazing that many of my followers had already warned me that my brother might be planning something, but I never would have thought it could be so evil. The wedding took place a few days ago. We canceled our honeymoon for now until we settle things because, right now, we wouldn't enjoy it. While we were sitting at the table, eating and talking with our parents about the future, one of the security guards, yes, we did hire some, as one of you suggested, approached me and informed me that someone outside was begging for admission. When I asked who, the guard hesitated briefly and then told me it was my brother. I told the guard that I would go with him to resolve the situation, but my father, who overheard the conversation, told me to stay put because it was my day, and I shouldn't have to deal with it. A little later, shouting was heard from outside. My mother asked me to stay seated and said she would go see what was going on. When she came back, her face pale as chalk, she told me that my brother and my father were shouting at each other outside. My brother demanded to be let in, and my father told him to screw off. At some point, my brother left, and my father tried to calm down, but you could still see the veins in his neck from anger. He explained what had happened. We thought that would be the end of it, but no, it was going to get worse. Much worse, in fact. My brother had somehow managed to get past the security guards. When I noticed him, he was approaching with frantic steps, and my father tackled him to the ground. The music in the room stopped, and all eyes were on us. I called the security guards. My father was on top of him, shouting. The security guards escorted him outside and called the police. They had noticed that he had a pocket knife, which he dropped when my father tackled him to the ground. I didn't say that he had tried to attack me with it, but I assumed that's what would have happened. He was arrested for attempted assault. He kept looking at me. He looked so full of anger and hatred. So yeah, the day was ruined. The police asked all the witnesses for statements and then sent all the guests home. We currently have to settle some things with the police and decided to take our honeymoon later because, right now, we're not in the right state of mind to enjoy it after everything that happened. Anyway, after everything, I'm not only disappointed in what my brother has become, I'm straight up terrified. I'm trying to tell myself that he didn't actually try to, well, end me. But how exactly do you deal with a situation like this? My husband and I are trying to move past it, and he is so sweet, but I can tell it affected him too. Anyway, I just wanted to tell you guys because some of you predicted something like this and advised me to hire security guards, but I really underestimated it. I have to take a break for now. Thanks for reading.